Hi everyone and welcome to our first webinar of 2021. We're going to be discussing all things Brexit. I'm Chloe and I work within the marketing at 360. We're joined today by my colleague Sean Maloney and we've got our guests Pauline Wade from the Hull and Humber Chamber of Commerce and Peter Millican from Pepperells Solicitors. So I'll pass you over to them now to introduce themselves before we start. So I'll pass you over to Sean first.
Good afternoon, everyone. Sean Maloney, as Chloe said, from 360. I'm one of the directors of 360, and I've been given the dubious privilege / honour of dealing with any sort of Brexit queries that have been thrown 360's way. Hopefully today we'll just have a refresher of where we are and what we're at, and hopefully if there's any questions we'll be able to at least give you some sort of initial guidance and maybe follow up with some detailed answers later.
Thank you. Peter?
Yeah, hi everyone. Peter Millican. I'm a corporate solicitor in Pepperells Commercial Business Unit, and we have also the dubious honour of looking at all things Brexit, which cut right across businesses and contracts, and hopefully give you a few things to look at this afternoon to think about in the months going forward while the new rules and Brexit transition affects itself.
Thank you. And finally, Pauline.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Pauline Wade. I'm the International Trade Director for the Hull and Humber Chamber of Commerce. The international department at the Chamber was launched in 1998, and it has a number of specialists within that department that is there to help businesses to trade internationally. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I will be here to keep an eye on the chat function and the Q&A function as well. So if anyone's got any questions, please just drop them in there and I'll ask either Sean, Pauline or Peter to answer them as best they can. We will aim to finish for 5 p.m. We may finish earlier, but if anyone's got any questions that they've missed, then please feel free to contact us. I'm going to now pass you over to my colleague Sean, who will start us off. Just let me share my screen. Yeah, over to you, Sean.
Thanks, Chloe. Yeah, as Chloe said, I'm going to open up the show, so good luck to you all. And I just thought there's just a couple of topics really. The first one is the key actions that should have been undertaken prior to Brexit launching, or key actions that you should be undertaking if you haven't done so already. And then just a couple of key distinctions on some of the terms or some of the frequent asked questions that have come across our way. I mean, the whole thing really about Brexit and the current situation, as I said at the outset, is there's a myriad of questions out there and topics. So we're just going to give you a bit of a whistle-stop guidance on what we are suggesting you need to do. Mainly, the things are tried to stop you incurring costs or delays because of Brexit, which seems to be the causal effect of the leaving of the EU. I mean, when you've got drivers having their ham sandwiches confiscated, you know, we're in a strange old world. Yeah, so the first sort of slides are about the key actions really that need to be undertaken. The main one really is to start off with is applying for the Economic Operator Registration and Identification, or the ORI number. This is the number that a business needs to have to import or export goods and is trading with the EU post Brexit. I mean, it's absolutely crucial to have this in place, otherwise it will cause delays about goods coming in or going out. According to the HMRC, there's a 15-minute process to register, and on the slides there's a link. Pauline and I were discussing earlier. Pauline said that HMRC should have been automatically introducing these ORI numbers. Well, I'd be interested to know if anyone can tell me if that's actually happened, because the last few questions I had from clients is that I've been steering them into sort of the areas how to apply for one. So if HMRC are automatically giving them out, then they'll probably be a hand. But given the world, the current conditions that we're under, I guess it's understandable. and it's needed by customs authorities. It's about exchanging information, so there's some sort of stats element around this, but I guess the main point is the security of things coming in and out of the ports. And then the next topic, or the next key decision, was about making your customs declarations. Again, another one to make sure you pay the duty and release your goods. All about changes in terms of all about making sure you get your goods in and out of the country as quickly as possible. And there are a couple of options: friends, yourself, or employing an agent. And again, there's a couple of links on there. I mean, the complexity of the goods and the services that you're providing, I think, is probably, if you haven't considered using an agent, I think it's now probably the time to look at whether you should be employing an agent. And as it says on the slides, it's both importing, exporting, and it's normally sorted by freight forwarders if you're using one. And if you're outsourcing the service, you've got to make sure that a freight forwarder is based in the UK.
So Shane Spencer's asked Sean, please could you cover changes to VAT, EU and non-EU, and input/output reverse charge in particular for services?
Yeah, there's a little bit when I get to the key distinction, Shane. I'm going to mention that, and I'm trying to give you as much guidance as I can. So I'll definitely be answering that question again as much as I can in the next couple of slides. You move on to the next slide, please, Chloe.
Yeah, I have clicked it. There we go.
Okay, thanks. The next thing is really to check about tariffs that apply to imported goods. As these are added onto the cost of the goods that come in, you need to make sure if there are any tariffs on the goods that you've got, and what they are, just so you can make sure you set the proper pricing policies. And then the next thing is to check if there's any goods bought in that are controlled. This will be taken into 3 phases. To start off from the 1st of January, it's mainly concerned with controlled goods, which are alcohol and tobacco, and live animals and high-risk plants. I'm not quite sure what a high-risk plant is, but that's what they're looking at. Then the next phase will be from the 1st of April, which includes all animal products, so meat, honey, cheeses. And then from the 1st of July, it will be all goods. So again, you need to make sure you've got everything in line with that sort of side of it. Because again, it can cause delays on goods coming in and going out, which is something that is essential that you need to avoid. And then with these measures being in place, the UK government has brought into postponing accounting. What that kind of means is that you can deal with any VAT or duty or any VAT that you're incurring on your imports via your VAT returns, rather than at the source of importing the goods, which again helps cash flow and just speed up the process. So that is a key action to look at, and as I've attached on the slide, is the way to kind of ready yourself to do that. So moving on to the couple of key distinctions, VAT and import duty. So VAT is the tax on the goods and services. Sellers are now, as the EU is now classed as we've left the EU, we're now classed as a 3rd country, then sellers can zero rate their goods, but buyers are subject to VAT on the part of import, and duty is tax paid on the imports. It's not reclaimable and it's part of the cost, so there's a key distinction there. In terms of services, Shane, especially for Shane, in terms of if you're doing services in or out of in the EU, it's really dependent on the supply, or the place of supply of the service. So if it's involved with any EU service, then there is the VAT element of that should be normally business to business is classed is zero rated, I believe. I don't believe you need to do the reverse charge situation now, but you can zero rate it. But as long as you declare it on your VAT return in the appropriate box, that should be picked up when you do your VAT return. Obviously, if you want a bit more detail, particularly with what countries you're dealing with, Shane, then just send me a direct message and I'll be able to pick it up a bit after this webinar so we can look at any specifics in terms of the treatment that we need to go through in the processes. And then in terms of the VAT deferment account, again, this is the ability to pay the duty in a single transaction rather than individual transactions. Again, it's all subject to quicker release, so speeding up any processes. It does allow for a cash flow advantage to defer the duty. And again, you can either do this yourself or use an agent. And as you can see there, the deferment account is set up with customs, subject to an agreed maximum limit. Usually this is sufficient to cover a full month's custom duty and import VAT liability. No interest is charged by customs. In effect, an importer obtains up to 6 weeks of positive cash flow, which is something everybody needs to be aware of. Again, with Brexit, the main thing that people have talked about is speed and cost. So all of these set of issues are aligned to try and speed up that process and also remove any costs. So then just onto the final slide, Chloe. And again, there's as we've said at the outset, there's a number of questions, issues unanswered still, even though that we're into the teeth of Brexit now. And there's some useful flowcharts on there, some Brexit flowcharts, which again can be accessed through the gov.uk the transition link, which has a number of key guides to help you try and understand the things that are going on.
Thank you, Sean.
Yes, thank you.
So next we have Pauline. So I'll hand you over to Pauline.
Well, good afternoon again. As I said earlier in the introduction, there are some key activities that we deliver from the International Trade Centre. Just to very quickly run through them, we deliver the export documentation service for government, on behalf of the government, i.e. with trusted third parties to stamp and process your export documentation. We have, in fact, on the 1st of January of this year, or the 4th rather, the first working day, launched a customs declaration service. That means we're official customs agents. So if we can help you there, if you need a customs agent that's fairly impartial. And that's delivered through British Chambers of Commerce, who provide the bond and the what they call the badges for all the ports. We are also delivering a help desk with the Growth Hub, which is a desk that is interactive and enables businesses to call with a specific query and indeed email as well if it's a very complex query to respond to the challenges of the documentation with regard to Brexit. More generally, we deliver letters of credit service. By that we mean we check it for you before it's presented, because there is a very high percentage of rejection from the banks on letters of credit, and it means you incur costs every time there's a rejection. Language and translation services, which enable you to communicate with every country in the world, to translate your brochures, etc. And we also participate as trade challenge partners on behalf of the Department of International Trade in overseas exhibitions. So that language and translation service becomes quite important at that time. We provide a customized consultancy on export and import training. We're currently training those that want to complete the customs declarations themselves. We're training what's required to complete the process, and also those that just merely want to understand the process. Again, as I said, market visits and networking events. There are not many market visits at the moment because we're not able to travel. But hopefully that will recover as soon as we've all had the jabs and we're able to move around again. Next slide, please. We're members of British Chambers of Commerce. There are 53 accredited chambers in the UK, and I am actually a member of their international trade group. We're also the parent chamber of the British Caribbean Chamber of Commerce, so but that means that the members of the Hull and Humber Chamber of Commerce actually own a chamber in the Caribbean. It's a bilateral chamber of commerce to encourage business between the Caribbean region and the UK, not just Hull and Humber, but the UK. You may well ask why the Caribbean. It's a lovely place to visit, but we were invited by the British High Commissioner in Barbados about 20 years ago to set up a bilateral chamber to help trade between the region of the Caribbean and the UK. As I said earlier, with DIT accredited trade challenge partners, and I'm a member of the LEP marketing group as well. That's the Local Enterprise Partnership Marketing Group. Next slide, please. What are our strengths? We get a reputation of quality of delivery and international footprint. Good at partnership working? Well, we like to think we are anyway. A reliable source of information for exporters, and I would add to that importers as well. Connectivity to international networks. There's a Chamber of Commerce in almost every country in the world. Some of them are very, very effective. Others are much smaller. You may know that Chambers of Commerce in the European Union are more or less emanations of state. I mean, they act as company registration points, if you like our company's house. You have to register there in the European Union with your Chamber of Commerce. We don't have that privilege in the UK. We are 100% private, owned by our members, for our members. Because of our experience in traveling overseas, exhibiting and taking trade missions, we've got a lot of market knowledge, first-hand market knowledge, and we have in-house capabilities to deal with technical and regulatory issues. And, you know, I'm certain that perhaps Peter will expand a little bit on the regulatory issues, which are still a cause for concern with regard to the new trading landscape with the EU. Thank you. Next one, please. Well, this one is very simple. Thank you very much. And any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Thank you, Pauline. I'll hand over to you, Peter.
No problem. Okay. Just a brief introduction. The topic areas that I'm wanting just to cover in brief today. So it's an overview. And I think I have to say that it's not legal advice specific to any business, because of course we can't do that unless we know what your individual issues are. But a little bit about Pepperells, 30 seconds, 20 seconds. The business areas that are affected, obviously all business areas will be affected to a greater or lesser extent by the changes, some more than others. One of the main impacts will be the changes to workforce rules and how you employ EU nationals and how you continue to employ EU nationals. Touching briefly on the EU settlement scheme, questions. I've prepared a list of questions that businesses should be asking themselves now. Should have already been asking themselves some of them. Continue to have these under review. And what are the business protection measures you can put in place to consolidate your successful business going forward in the new regime? And just points in conclusion. Okay. So Pepperells are an all-service law firm. So we have 6 offices. One in Newcastle, Hull, Grimsby, Scunthorpe, Lincoln and Beverley. And we do commercial business and corporate transactions, so buying and selling businesses, which is the unit I work in. We do private client, wills and probate, family law, criminal defence, and on and on. So check out our website if you want a little bit more detail. In terms of my background, I've been a corporate lawyer for nearly 30 years. I've worked exclusively for businesses over that period of transactional buying and selling businesses, protecting businesses, and also in terms of looking at documentation, working with EU clients and clients in America and elsewhere. So that's how we can help. Myself and my colleagues have a great deal of experience in doing this. Yeah, this is a non-exhaustive list. Clearly, as I've said in the opening most businesses will be affected in some way by the new regime, as we now have the status of a third country, no longer an EU member. But those, and it's a non-exhaustive list, but those are a list of areas business that I think will be most affected by this. Hospitality and leisure, so that will cover everything from hotels, B&Bs, nightclubs, bars, restaurants, etc. Manufacturing, particularly those with importing and exporting, whether that is their own goods or whether they are also bringing in the component parts or exporting component parts. Farming and agriculture, fishing, that's an obvious one. Construction sector, where the construction sector has been heavily reliant in the last 20 years on EU and obviously non-EU nationals to work as labourers and trades craftsmen in construction. There will be, this is for employers who are currently employing EU workers as employees or self-employed, and those who will likely do so in the future. The government, as part of the move away from the EU, has introduced a points-based system, and the points-based system will have the following basic requirements that I can, if you wish to email me or contact me after this seminar, I can be more specific with individual companies should they wish. There will be a language requirement. To work in the UK, you will have to have at least intermediate English. The salary requirement is that you must offer, there must be a firm job offer for someone to come into the EU to work for you, and that job offer must attract a minimum salary of £20,480 per annum. If you offer 25,600 or more, or you are to employ a PhD student, then there will be additional points for the points-based system for such applicants. You must, to allow anyone to enter the UK as an employee, you must have given them a suitably binding job offer, which will give them a contract of employment, which they should have accepted and signed. So I think one of the bits of homework for all businesses working with EU nationals as employees or intending to do so is to look at your terms and conditions and your contracts of employment to make sure that they're still fit. And also factoring in what I've just gone through in terms of your recruitment policies and processes. It will be slightly more cumbersome and challenging, although it will be doable. Have revised and reviewed your contracts and your processes and procedures. The EU settlement scheme has been brought in by the UK government. And this is to cover employers who currently employ EU citizens, EU nationals as employees. There is a legal obligation to inform your EU workers who are employed in the UK currently take advantage of the EU settlement scheme. And this has to be done. The deadline for doing so for employers, they must apply under the settlement scheme by the 30th of June this year. Therefore, it's extremely important that if you have current EU nationals who are employed or working for you, that you inform them of the EU settlement scheme, and they must make the appropriate applications by the end of June. If they are successful in being granted British citizenship under the EU settlement scheme going forward, then that means they have a right to remain, as do their families in the UK. These are just a list of questions I've put together that businesses should have probably already been asking themselves. But if they haven't, then they need to do so now. So strategic changes. How's your business operated previously may not be the same going forward. Then you need to look at your strategic plan and your business plan, review with regard to any changes that need to be made directly as a result of the exit from the EU and Australia now the third country. Do you have any foreign rate exposure as far as do you purchase in non-sterling currency? Do you sell in non-sterling currency? So what I have in mind there is, do you therefore need to look at changing contracts to reflect this? Do you need to look into interest rate forward buying, swap money, or hedging. If you operate supply chains, Sean has already gone very, very kindly through some of the aspects that are involved there, but you will need to review your supply chain contracts with your third-party suppliers to make sure they're still compliant and relevant. Same for import and export into the EU. Your business contracts, this is your contracts not only with the suppliers, but also your contracts with your customers or clients in EU countries. Are they still relevant? Do they need to be changed? And the answer to that is likely in all cases should be reviewed. I will come back in a little bit more detail on sending data across the EU, so the GDPR and data protection in a second. If you have currently any cross-border litigation, or you are likely to have so because you've got contracts with EU nationals and companies based in the EU, the regime going forward will change, but you are still able under your contracts to have the mentioning in the jurisdiction clause of any contracts that it is subject to the laws of England and Wales. So I think that's increasingly important to make sure that is in all of your contracts. Now, we've been asked quite a bit already on GDPR and data protection requirements. I think prior to the 31st of December 2020, we could all assume that we could freely transfer data back and forward between EU member states because we are all compliant with, the UK was compliant with GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulations that were in EU membership. Whilst the UK has said they will still adhere to those measures, what is now the sea change is if you are transferring data across to any EU business or individual, or vice versa, coming in the other way around, you as a business are now absolutely obligated to ensure that your GDPR and your data protection policies and procedures are at least as stringent as the GDPR requirements previously were. So whilst there's a distinction between the UK government enacting and keeping in force the GDPR requirements, all businesses now, it's incumbent upon them, and I can't stress this enough, to make sure they are actually compliant with at least that level before any data is passed inside or outside the EU borders. So that is something that we are getting quite a few inquiries on. So here's the things you do need to check if you are engaged with any business individual in the EU as part of your business. So check your current terms and conditions of business with your customers and your clients. Similarly, check any contracts you have with suppliers, all other business contracts. And I have in mind there, your employment contracts, shareholder agreements. If you are looking to establish a new business in the EU, that is clearly need a significant amount of legal and tax and accounting advice to do so. And similarly, we have had clients previously who are currently established in the EU, who want to set up a UK base. That is the same. They will need to take some significant legal advice. And also check whether your current business structure remains relevant. If you were previously, before 31st December, a limited liability partnership or sole trader, do you now think it's more appropriate to become a limited company? So always keep these aspects under review, almost like an MOT certificate. Your terms and conditions of business might have been relevant previously, but they may need a health check now and a revision. Final list, check that your contracts are current and compliant, check your current employee status, particularly obviously where they are EU nationals. Check your processes for recruiting new employees, check GDPR compliance, and look at your business plan and strategy for the next few years going forward. I, or any of my colleagues in commercial business team, advice and guidance to companies operating in the EU jurisdiction, and we do have a beyond Brexit legal implications toolkit for clients of the firm. So I think, unless there are any other questions, that's enough for me.
Thank you very much, Peter. I think there might have been a problem with the mic just in and out there, but hopefully everyone was able to hear. If not, we're obviously always here afterwards to answer any questions. So that sort of brings us to the end. We finished half an hour earlier. So if anyone has any questions that they're still thinking of asking, I know we've had some from Shane, just pop them in the chat box or the Q&A box, and we'll give it a couple of minutes to give you a chance. And if you miss anything, this is getting recorded and it will be uploaded to our YouTube channel, which is 360 TV, tomorrow. And for anyone who hasn't been able to make it, we'll also get a recording of this as well, to just keep for your whenever you want to watch it. So I'll leave it a couple of minutes for anyone else. As I said, you can ask questions confidentially. You don't have to post them for everyone to see. If anyone's not that clued up on Zoom.
I guess for me, Chloe, would be the attendees is whether it'd be interesting to know what their experiences have been so far since we've been out of the EU for 13 days.
Yeah.
If anybody's brave enough or I've got anybody wants to share anything, but be interesting to see what is going on there. I mean, obviously the press are saying about the things that are in the press about delays, and as I mentioned earlier, the ham sandwich being taken away from people. Can't get my teeth in. Whether that's just sensationalism or what people are experiencing. Be interesting to see how it's actually out there, what's actually going on.
And again, feel free to contact us if you want to have a separate meeting with us or a separate call. That's what we're here for. We'll end it there then. If anyone, as I say, anyone miss any questions, then just get in touch with us. The topic for our February webinar is to be confirmed. So please keep an eye out on all of our social media channels for further details to come. I hope you enjoy your evening and thank you all for attending.
Thank you.